Hello again, I am Jim Bob and welcome to Railway Empire, the latest game from Kalypso Media. I just want to say a big thank you before we go any further to Kalypso for actually sending me a copy of this game so I could feature it on the channel for you guys. Really looking forward to showing this game off to you. I've had a lot of fun sort of playing around with this. I've done a couple of the campaign missions already to kind of get my bearings with the game, because it's not the easiest game to just pick up and play. You know, if you've never played it before, you do have to really kind of work at a couple of things to get into the right mindset and think things through. And you are going to make mistakes along the way. This is a game with quite a steep learning curve, I would say, initially. Once you've played it a little while and you've gone through a couple of the campaign scenarios and some of these standalone scenarios, and also had a bit of a play around in either free mode or sandbox mode, all that combines to make it a very, very, very enjoyable game. But it is difficult. This is one of those games where you need to kind of play through the tutorial section to kind of figure out how everything works together. It's not, as I say, something you can just pick up and play instantly. You do have to work at it a little bit, but it is worth it. It's a game that definitely rewards your patience and your perseverance. So what is Railway Empire? Well, it's a tycoon game. The basic premise is that you have a railroad industry that you're trying to set up in competition against up to 3 different AI industry tycoons that are also trying to set up their own railroads, and you're constantly competing against them to try and make sure that yours is the most profitable, has the best engines, has the best service, is the most reliable, so on and so forth. And you can attack their networks, and you can also try and buy out their networks and put them out of business completely. It is very, very aggressive at times, depending on the difficulty level that you have it set at as well. Your plans can be completely disrupted by the AI suddenly placing a station in one of your towns where you weren't expecting it and cutting off the route that you were intending on taking. So you do have to be kind of quite aware of what's going on a lot of the time. You can't just kind of phone it in and go onto autopilot, because you will end up getting caught out by the AI, I guarantee you that. So there is about 100 years worth of time, I think it is, split into 20-year time periods. There's loads and loads of different eras, and as I say, each one is split into a 20-year block. So you have engines that are appropriate to that kind of time, and then as you move all the way up to like the 1910, so when you start to get the really, really big, powerful steam engines and the introduction of the diesel as well, from 1910 to 1930. We are going to play through the campaign first of all. This is essentially where you'll learn how to play the game, so this should be your first port of call if you play this yourself. Go through the campaign, learn how to play the game, and then once you've done that, you can attack the scenarios. You can go into free mode, which basically allows you to pick an area that you want to play and a time period that you want to play in, and whether or not you want to play against the AI. You can change all of the settings and then go in and do that. And then you have sandbox mode, which is your build your ideal perfect railway. There's no money. It's, you know, you have completely unlimited funds. Everything is unlocked, and you can choose where and when you play. And there's no AI as well. It's just you and your imagination in sandbox mode. You may have seen I posted a little coming soon video a day or two ago on my channel, and that was me just having a play around in sandbox mode, building a little network in the northeast, running from sort of New York area down towards Baltimore and sort of beyond New York as well. Very, very small little network. The maps are actually quite big. You can get a lot built in each of these maps. But we're going to start off with the campaign. So as you can see, I've already done chapters 1 and 2. This is just me, as I say, trying to get some understanding of the game and get my feet wet kind of thing, rather than just jumping in completely blind and not knowing what to do or what to expect. We're going to start with chapter 1. So the first chapter takes you to the construction site of the Union Pacific Railroad, which was started in 1863. Tracks were built westwards to establish the first transcontinental line. While you are conquering the vastness of the Great Plains and the heights of the Rocky Mountains with your tracks, you will learn about the basics of railway empire. Thomas Clark Durant, the visionary in charge of Union Pacific, will assist you. So he's going to pop up and he's going to keep giving us bits of advice and teach us some of the basics of the game in this first scenario. Now, normally he will, do that with a voice. I've actually turned that off just for this first episode because he will constantly keep interrupting me while I'm talking, but we'll have him turned on for the second chapter. In fact, it won't actually be here, it will be somebody else. Now, we can't choose where we start because it's a campaign, but in sandbox or free mode you can choose which of these cities that you start in. We have one major sort of starting area. This is where you start, and if there are any more of those, it's where potential AI levels could start. So you'll have up to 4 of these big starting cities, and then you've got all the smaller cities there, and that's all the different cities that we can try and connect to. We have no options that we can change in this apart from the pause menu, which we're not going to touch. But obviously, again, in Sandbox, you can start playing around with those settings a little bit. In fact, no, not Sandbox. In free mode, you can play around with these settings a little bit, so you can choose your starting capital, where you start, whether you have AI. If you do have AI, how hard they are. Normal is the easiest mode it gets. Then it gets to hard, and then it gets to like very hard. So there is no easy. Don't go looking for easy because it doesn't exist. And then you have a choice of your rail networks. This allows you to change some of your basic sort of income settings, and it will also affect your rating that you get at the end of it as well. But we're going to jump in. As I say, we can't change anything else, so we're just going to jump straight in. This guy would normally be talking a lot as well. I've turned his voice off too. This is the industrialist. Again, in free mode or sandbox mode, you actually have a choice of characters, and there are quite a few to choose from, and each different character has their own specific bonus. So the industrialist has a 5% higher freight price bonus, so you get 5% more than the standard freight price when we transport freight goods. There's another character who's a scientist who gives us plus 20% research every month. There's another one who's a mob boss who gets a lot more applicants for positions within his business and his trains. That music cutting out is him trying to talk and being muted, if you're wondering why the sound keeps cutting out on that. And there's another one who gets bonuses for discounting the cost of building a railway itself, actually laying the track is like 10% cheaper, and so on and so forth. There's quite a few different characters, and they all have their own specific bonus. Again, because it's the campaign, we're locked with this guy. So I'm just going to jump straight in, and we'll get our first little history lesson.
In 1863, on the banks of the Missouri River, the last chapter in the monumental undertaking of the Transcontinental Railroad began. The workers of the Union Pacific Railroad began laying their tracks westward from Omaha through the wild heart of the North American continent. Massive challenges awaited them. Away from all civilization, the country was vast, the weather ruthless, and the challenges tremendously energy-sapping. But there was a masterstroke of modern engineering to be accomplished, to tame the wilderness and to conquer it with steel, fire, and steam. Never before had anything like this been ventured, but the time was ripe.
Greetings, my name is Thomas Clark Durant. Exactly, the head of Union Pacific. We will go down in history as the ones who created the Transcontinental Railroad, and that, my friend, is your job as Chief Engineer. I can't supervise everything here on site right now, as I have to meet with some politicians in Washington. This guy's going to keep popping up with little bits of speech over the next sort of few minutes as he teaches us the basic controls. Basically, he's going to teach us first off the camera controls, how we zoom in and zoom out and rotate the camera around. Then he's going to go through some of the basic stuff. It's quite long. If I just let him wait for him to actually tell us all of that, it'll take quite a while. So basically, this is where we're starting. We're starting in Omaha. Now, our first task is to connect to Norfolk here. Now, as you can see, we already have a basic station here in Omaha. So we need to build a station here in Norfolk. It's really straightforward. We just hold down R2 to open up our radial wheel. And this is where we have all of the controls that we need. So first thing we need to do is to build the station itself. We go into building construction, press X, and now we have our choice of railway buildings here. You can also build industries in your cities when there's space for them, and you can also build specific buildings as well, but we're just going to start with a railway building. We're going to start with just a small train station. It doesn't need to be any bigger. And when you're placing a station, it needs to be inside the green ring of the city. Now, if we're placing a rural station like this next to an industry, it's a little bit different, and we'll see that in just a moment. But you literally just find where you want to place it. It doesn't have to be slap bang in the center. It could be up here. As long as it's green, then it's fine to place. We're going to keep it nice and simple. I'm just going to plonk it about there. So now that we've done that, we need to connect the two stations together. So we're going to go back into our radial wheel and we're going to select track construction. Now, track placement is really straightforward and easy in this. It's really well done. We literally just press X where we want the track to start. And then we just drag wherever we want it to go. And it'll automatically build us a route. And it build it with a reasonably shallow curve and a nice straight line wherever possible. They try and build a nice, easy route, but sometimes it'll build with very big sweeping curves, and we want to maybe get rid of some of those a little bit. So you can just press X on the line whenever you see the little flag symbol pop up. This allows you to basically put a track point down, like so. And once you have a track point, you can hold X and you can actually move that track point around, and that'll change the way the line is built. So you can see here, if I drag it like this, it's flattened out this curve here quite dramatically, and it's built a much shorter, well, I say much shorter, it's built a shorter route basically. Now it can have quite an impact on cost based on where you put your track points. You don't have to place them down, but if you do, then they can have quite an impact on how much it's going to cost you to build the piece of railway. If you're trying to place this through an area that has water, then obviously it's going to build a bridge, and you can choose how the bridge is kind of built. Also, if you have different height in your terrain, then it can choose the incline. Remember, these are steam engines. You're going to want to keep the inclines as shallow as possible. Otherwise, they're going to have problems getting up those hills. They're just not going to have the strength or the power, especially these early engines that we're going to be using. So you need to make sure you're trying to build on flat ground wherever you can. And also, if you're building through a mountain, you'll see if we zoom over this way, we do have some hills and mountains here. And if we were to build through this, if we just left it as is, say we wanted to connect this little industry here to Grand Junction, and we built a tunnel through this mountain, it would cost us an absolute fortune, because we'd have to build a tunnel through pretty much all of this, so as a direct straight line. So we could grab the track and we could drag it all the way out here, make it a much longer route, but bypass the mountain and save a massive amount of money, because we wouldn't have to do massive earthworks and build tunnels, etc. It'd be much, much cheaper. So let's get back to where we were. This is the line that we've got. Once we're happy with the way it's placed, you just press triangle and boom, there we go. We have ourselves a working train line. So now we need a train to run between Omaha and Norfolk. So this is, again, is nice and straightforward. We're going to press R2, pull up the radial wheel, select new train. And this gives us the ability to now create a train for our network. So once we have this option up, we simply press triangle, and this will pull up all the different engines that we currently have unlocked. Now, we only have the Philadelphia right now, so it's just one single engine to choose from. But if we've been playing for a while and we'd unlocked other engines, then we could choose which of those ones we wanted to run this specific line. Some are dedicated as freight trains, some are balanced, can run freight or passengers, and some are designed for express. So they don't have the same power as a freight train, but they are much, much faster. So they're going to transport passengers and mail a lot quicker, which is, what you want. We're going to just choose the Philadelphia, so we press X to buy the locomotive. Now, if we had personnel, such as an engineer or stoker and so on and so forth, then we could choose to add from any ones that we had available onto the train. Now, we don't have any staff right now, so we don't have anything to do. And then we have rail cars. So these rail cars we can add onto our train, and they will take up some of the space available. So you have a set maximum number of cars that can be attached to the back of your engine. And adding in these takes some of those slots away a little bit. But we're going to go with a dining car and a mail car on this particular train, because this is mainly going to be running passengers once it gets up and running. That's kind of the plan anyway. And there we go. So our train is now set up. Now we need to actually create the route for our train to run. So we're going to press square when you see rail line there. And now we're going to basically choose which stations this train is going to run from and to. So we're going to start here and we're going to hit Omaha. That's our starting point. And then we're going to run to Norfolk. And we'll automatically try and head back to our start point. Now, if we had another station over here, then we could obviously tag that station there, and then it would go from Omaha to Norfolk, then to here. And if we didn't do anything else, it would then try and head straight back to Omaha and miss Norfolk out on the way back. So basically, it would just go straight through Norfolk and wouldn't stop. So if we wanted it to stop there on the way back, we would need to make sure we tag that as well. These little arrows here will help you figure out exactly where your train is going in either direction. Once we're happy with the route options, we literally just press save and end. Before I do that though, there's one other thing I want to show you about routes. If we go into route options, down here you have the choice. Obviously you can change the name of your route if you want to give it a specific name. You also have the option here to have automatic loading. Now with automatic loading, whatever is available in that station to be transported will be loaded onto your train. So this could be mail, it could be passengers, it could be freight. You could choose to have express goods only. This means the train will only transport mail and freight, and if there's mail and passengers. And if there's nothing available, it'll just run an empty train all the way over to the next stop and try and pick something up there. Again, if there's nothing there, you could end up basically just shuttling a train back and forth with no passengers and no mail and just wasting money. You need to kind of pay attention to your trains if you do go with the choice of a set type of cargo. So you have express goods only, and you also have freight only. So this means any passengers or any mail that are waiting to be transported will not be loaded onto this particular train. And then you've got manual, so you can choose exactly what goes on. This is a bit more complicated, and we'll come to that way later down the line. We're just going to leave this on automatic for now. So once we're happy, we just press save and end, which is circle. And there is our train. So you can see our train is being built. So we have our dining car at the front. Then we have a load of meat that's being transported. And then at the back, we have our mail car. So this train is going to run all the way over to Norfolk. And when it gets to Norfolk, it'll unload. We'll get some money for our meat. And then it'll fill up with whatever's available at Norfolk, which is probably going to be beer. Once it's done that, once or twice, we'll start to get passengers on the line as well. The goods are taking priority right now. So as you can see at the bottom, he's giving us some more advice. As each locomotive needs water, sand and lubricant on its journey, we have to place a supply tower along the route. If we don't, our trains won't stop, but they will run a lot slower than they could do. It'll come up with a little warning symbol saying train slowed due to missing equipment or missing items. So we need to go back into building construction. We need to go in railway buildings, and we need to build a supply tower. It's telling us here this is where it wants us to build it. So we're going to follow the instructions. I'm just going to press X, and there is our supply tower built on our route. So when a train needs to refill, it'll automatically just stop underneath this supply tower, fill up with the relevant materials that it needs, and then carry on its journey. So it's just telling us here that there's a corn farm near Omaha. Both of our towns are going to need some corn. It's just one of those crops that a town needs to help it grow. And you can see actually that because we're now transporting stuff, Norfolk itself is actually starting to grow. So we need to build a new station down here so that we can shuttle our corn to our different cities. So we're going to place this here, and as you can see, when you're placing next to a little regional sort of industry like this, you can't actually place inside the red circle. This circle here, if it was a city, this would be where we would have to place inside the circle. With industries, we have to place outside of the circle. And it doesn't matter where you place it, as long as you have that connecting link. And of course, you can rotate all the way around if you want to. So you can place it at pretty much any angle. And don't worry about placing over the top of fields. Anything that you build over like this will automatically relocate itself to somewhere else around the side of the industry. So you don't have to worry about not planting your station or plonking your station over the top of crop fields like this, or cow pastures, or whatever industry it is there, because it will automatically reshape it around where you place your station. We're just going to place it just here, as per the suggestion. And now, of course, we need to connect some rail to that. So let's just build our line nice and straightforward. And again, you can see we've got this long sweeping curve here. And you can see that we are going to have a little bit of earthworks here as it builds a little bit of a trench, just a very shallow trench for the railway to sit in. Again, if we wanted to, we could actually get in there and play about with that a little bit, and you can see that the cost will vary, and also the length of the track will vary as well. Ideally, you want your lines to be short so that your journeys are quicker, but you also want to be wary of your costs as well. I'm just going to flatten that curve out just a little bit like that. And there we go. I'm happy with the route. Press triangle to build it. And now things are getting a bit tricky as we have to deal with a logistical problem. As Norfolk should also enjoy fresh corn, there will soon be 2 trains travelling on the same stretch of track between Omaha and Norfolk. Of course, this will result in a conflict. Basically, we're going to have a second train that's going to run from here to Omaha and then to Norfolk. Now, we already have a train that's running on this line, and they can't go head to head, so we're going to have to build a passing loop. And this is where it wants us to build them. So we're going to start off, we're going to build our little passing loop. Now, this is the start point here. You have a choice when you're coming up to build track like this in freeform land, freehand. You can basically build parallel tracks like this, or you can build a switch or a set of points and then build off the points. I'm just going to start by building a piece of parallel track between the 2 glowing sections like that. There we go. So that is my piece of track there. I'm going to confirm that, and now I'm going to build the points afterwards. You can do it the other way around. You can build the points first and build the track after that if you want to. I just fancy doing it a little bit differently. And you can change how shallow or severe that set of points is. If it goes red, it means it's too steep, too severe, or it just can't be built at that particular angle. If it's on a corner, for example, you might have to go a bit further around the corner before you can connect. If it needs to draw out a little bit more line before it bends and turns onto the other track, it will do that. So we'll build that point there. Let's do the same over here. Build a nice shallow switch just there. There we go. And now we need to place some signals. Well, it's all very well having this passing track, but the trains will automatically default to try and take the shortest route, which means they're going to stay on this line here. They're not going to take this line unless we tell them to. So to do that, we need to place signals. Now these are free. There's no cost involved in building signals. And there are two different types of signals. Now the arrow, the cone that you can see, denotes the direction of the train that it'll be travelling. So this train will be travelling from left to right. And of course, if we change it, it'll be travelling from right to left. This is important so that you make sure that the right signal is pointing to the right train. Now we want to make sure that this passing loop becomes a one-way section. So the train can only go this way on this track and then the opposite direction on the other track. That way there's a dedicated line for each direction. So we're going to place our signal just here. This is a basic stop signal. So if you have, for example, two lines feeding into a single track station, then you can set up a stop signal so that the train will stop at that point if there's something on the track in front of it, and then it'll wait for that to be cleared. Now if we were to leave it like this, then if the train is anywhere on this line in front of us, it'll stop and it'll wait till the train comes all the way back, even if it's all the way down at the corn farm, so sort of back here, before it then moves on again. We don't want that. We want a you cannot enter from this direction. So any trains coming from the bottom up will now automatically turn onto this line here and head this way. And of course we're going to do the same at the other end as well. So let's change the direction, plonk the signal down and put the no entry symbol on. So again, any trains on this side will just stay on the right hand side and go that way, and they will not be able to turn this way here. Nice and simple, nice and straightforward. It takes a little bit of getting used to the first couple of times you do it, but it's once you place signals a couple of times, it becomes second nature. So now that we have our connected station down here and we have our little passing loop, we need to build our second train. So again, we're going to go to add new train, and we're going to add the locomotive. Again, we only have a choice of the Philadelphia, and this time, because we know we're going to be transporting food, I'm going to take the refrigerator car. This will give us a 20% revenue bonus for every piece of or every car of food that we transport on this train. Now we need to set the rail line, so again press square to access that. And we're going to start here at Evans Farm. We're going to go to Omaha. We're going to go to Norfolk, and here you can see, as I was telling you earlier, it's going to default head straight back to Evans Farm and just go straight through Omaha without stopping. Now I want that to act as a secondary delivery train, so I'm going to tag Omaha again, and this way the train will go all the way out to Norfolk, then head back to Omaha, so it picks up anything in Norfolk, then delivers it to Omaha, drops everything off, then it'll come back here to restart the loop again, pick up at Evans Farm, go to Omaha and go for the Norfolk, and so on and so forth. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave it on automatic, so again we can transport either freight, mail or passengers, or any combination of. I'm going to hit save and exit, and here is our new train being loaded with corn. There we go. So I'm going to ride along with this center on the train and ride along. It says here, we're still missing something. Locomotives wear out over time and need to be regularly maintained so that they can perform their duties more reliably. For this purpose, there needs to be at least one maintenance building on each rail line where the locomotives can be serviced if necessary. So, yeah, basically, not only do we need to provide supplies via the supply towers to keep them running at top speed, we also need to keep them maintained as well, as they will suffer random breakdowns, but if we don't have maintenance sheds dotted across our network, then they will eventually just keep breaking down due to bad condition. And those breakdowns will take a bit of time to clear, so you can end up with long delays from trains getting from station to station, which when you're playing against the AI can end up costing you quite a lot of money. It can have a negative impact on your business, and customers can start looking at alternative routes. So here you can see with the ride along, we've got the other train waiting at the signal point there for us. And once we go through, that train will then head off. So if I switch to the back view, you can see the signal drop and that train is off and running. There is also a sort of on the nose kind of view which gets quite fast, especially this is only at 30 miles an hour. When you've got a train that's doing like 130, this gets very, very fast indeed. So yeah, we need to build a maintenance shed. That's the next task. So to do that, you just click on your station itself and press square to construct a maintenance building. It'll always cost you 80,000 unless you have a perk that is discounting that ever so slightly, regardless of the size of the station. So a single track station, a dual track station, or a 4-track station, doesn't matter, it'll always be 80,000. And there is our little maintenance shed. So our trains will now start to get themselves serviced here in Omaha when they pass through. He's been lollygagging for long enough. He's off to return to Washington for further miserable negotiations with representatives of the people, and he's given us a task list. So the task list, again, can be accessed via the radio wheel. Everything can be accessed via the R2 radio wheel. So these are our tasks. We need to connect Omaha and North Platte, and then Omaha and Cheyenne. So that doesn't have to be a direct connection from Omaha itself to North Platte itself, as long as we have a line that goes through as many stations as it needs to, but is one continuous line that gets through to North Platte from Omaha. That's what is important. And then same again to Cheyenne, and those need to be achieved before the end of 1864. So we have plenty of time. We've got 18 months before these objectives have to be completed. If we don't complete them, we fail the objective, we fail the scenario, and we have to start again. Then we have some optional tasks as well, where we have to deliver 16 loads of cattle to Denver, 16 loads of meat to Cheyenne. 150,000 people need to be connected to our railway network. This number is going to go up based on how many people are in our cities and how many cities we're connected to, so that's actually quite an easy one to achieve. And then we have the connect to the Great Plains with the Rocky Mountains. We need to reach a population of 30,000 in Cheyenne, connect Omaha and Rock Springs, and transport 100 passengers from Cheyenne to Rock Springs without stopping. Now, these aren't necessarily going to be the only tasks that we have. We might get more thrown at us as we continue to play, but we're going to start off by connecting Omaha and North Platte. And from time to time, you'll see these little news reports pop up, usually when something monumental within the railway networks happens. So someone gets a new train that's like the first of its kind, that'll pop up here. If someone sets a new speed record, then that'll pop up here. Also, as you'll see further down the line, you can get some smear stories printed in the paper about either your network or your competitors' networks as well. So you'll see some more of that in the second part, the second chapter. Right, where are we first? North Platte. So you can see we've actually got a connection bonus here of 350,000. Now, while these little green star symbols are showing and we connect to the city, we will get the bonus. If we don't connect in time and the bonus disappears before we get the connection established, we don't get the bonus. So you have to do it while the symbol is showing. So we need a station, first of all. I'm going to build just I'm actually going to build a dual track station here on this one, and I'm going to plonk the station just there. So now I need to actually connect it. So let's build a track. Let's start here in Norfolk. And I'm going to plonk onto this outside line just here. I think. Actually, no. I'm going to plonk just there instead on the inside line. And again, I have the option of actually tweaking this if I want to. I'm quite happy with that. I mean, it's 105,000, and it's partly because of the earthworks here, where we're building a little trench. And this is because we're staying at a flat, zero incline gradient all the way. If I actually put a point here, it'll raise it to the point of the ground. So it'll raise it ever so slightly, and those earthworks will disappear, and the cost will come down just a little bit. And then again, if I wanted to, I can just straighten that out a bit more with a bit of tweaking. Or, as I say, I could just leave it as is and have that little trench there, which is what we'll do this time. Let's build the route. And there you can see we got our $350,000 bonus for connecting before the symbol disappeared. We've got another one popping up over here now by Cheyenne. So again, let's jump into Cheyenne. Again, I'm going to build a dual station. And I'm going to plonk this one here, like that. And there we go, the 100th meridian crossed. Transcontinental no longer a dream. Some of these stories are, usually the top story is usually about, whatever's just happened. And then the other ones are just random stories that pop up. So you can see we've got Salt Action for the Brain, Jack the Bull fell into the pit, and Teddy joins the police. You will get other silly stories that pop up, like Stupidest Burglar Ever, and so on and so forth. It's worth reading them every now and again. They can be quite useful bits of information, and also there can be some stuff that's quite funny as well. So now we need to actually build a rail connection from Cheyenne to North Platte. So same again, I'm going to build a line here, and I'm going to check which of my lines I'm built on. I built on this one. I remember I said it needs to be a continuous line. If I were to build from this one here, then the train coming from Omaha would reach North Platte and then stop, because you can't just jump from one line to the other. There would need to either be a switch just before the station to allow me to turn onto this line, or there would need to be a switch, or it would just need to be built on this line here, which is what we're going to do. Build a single continuous line. So I'm going to drag this all the way over to Cheyenne, and I'm going to build this on the top line just there. And you can see here we've got some earthworks going on as we cut into the ground just here, and then you can see we run through past a couple of different quarries over here. We're just going to ignore those for now and just build the line. Now the line's 150,000. Now I could see if I could make that a little bit cheaper, like that. And what that has done is actually built this huge, great big bridge to try and keep everything at the same gradient. And that's actually, added an extra 100,000 onto our cost. So if I were to press X again and put a point here, drop it back to the ground, we've now got a 2% incline, but we've brought the cost down a little bit. And you can see you can play around with it a little bit, and you can change the cost, and you can change how much is being built. I don't need any of those to be here, so I'm just going to take both of those points out and just leave it as is for 150,000. Let's confirm the route, and there we go. We built to Cheyenne before the symbol disappeared, so we've got a 550,000 connection bonus. They are limited time bonuses. Once they disappear, that's it. If you didn't build your line and connect it in time, that bonus is gone and it's not coming back. That was the first of our two tasks as well. We've now connected to Omaha to North Platte and to Cheyenne. So now we need to start looking at some of our optional tasks. You can see here he's got some more bits and bobs he wants to go through with us as well. So let's take a look at that. Cities receive basic goods from the surrounding area. If you construct stations in the right places and establish rail lines, your trains will be used to transport goods and will make profits for transportation. But for this, you need to know what goods a city actually needs. You can find any of your city's current needs by simply sort of highlighting it or clicking on it and pressing square to view your city's production details. As you can see, Cheyenne currently needs only a handful of goods, and you can deliver goods in demand. As you can only deliver goods in demand. As the city grows, it will demand further goods. At the moment, you can supply grain and wood. Both of these goods are available to the north of Cheyenne. This is where it wants us to pick these up from. So connect Cheyenne to a timber business and a wheat farm and establish a new rail line that connects them both to Cheyenne. So, as you saw, if I were to build a small station here, I'd have to put one here, and then I'd have to put another one here, and have two separate lines running up this way. I'm going to go with a large station which has a big enough range and a big enough radius to actually tag them both at the same time, like so. Now we obviously need to connect this to Cheyenne. So I actually built Cheyenne here on the top, and that was deliberate. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a point just here, and I'm going to create a switch point like that. Just going to run it along a little bit like that, and now I'm going to bend this up to here, like so. And you can see it'll automatically try and build me a route. If I just take that one out a little bit there, you can see it'll automatically try and build me a direct route based on my start point and my end point. So you can see it's going to build a little mound just here, then a little bridge just here, then it's going to cut through the rock here, and a bit through here as well, all the way up to there, and it ends up giving us this route here at 87 miles for 103,000. Now if I were to press X and create a point here, you can see it's changing the route straight away, and we've got a sharper incline of 4%, plus we've now got this very big bridge here. We've got a much longer, windier route, and it's costing us more money as well. Now again, we can kind of bend and shape this as much as we want. So if I want sort of the line to come at this sort of angle, for example, I can do this. Obviously this is still quite expensive, but it's cheaper in some respects because we're not cutting through this section of the mountain now. We're actually saving a bit of cash in that respect by having these trestle bridges instead. Now again, if I were to kind of bring this round a little bit more, you can see now that we're curving around here. We've got a bit of a steep incline just here at 4%, but the route now is only 53 and well, nearly 54,000. Much, much cheaper. And again, I can take that one out there, and it's trying to shallow the route out to a shallower incline, which is why it then redirected it round there. And of course that means more earthworks, means more track, which is why the cost has gone up again. So if I bring this back around, actually, I need to place it about here. And there we go. Now we have a 3% incline. We have just this 1% incline here, and a little bit of earthworks going on through here. Maybe I can raise that a little bit. There we go. I mean, that's not too bad, but again, you know, it's still cheaper than it was initially, and we're going to go with that. But you can see how playing around with your line enables you to really change where the track goes, how much it's going to cost you, and so on and so forth in terms of bridges, any tunnels, and so on and so forth. You do get a little bit of a bonus for parallel tracks if you have parallel tracks. So you can see it doesn't always work, but if you build long stretches of parallel tracks, sometimes you can actually get a little bit of a discount if it's going through sort of earthworked areas. But there we go, there is our little track there. We're going to confirm that, and now we need to put a signal in here so that the trains don't get in each other's way. So we're going to go to building construction, I'm going to go to signals, and I'm going to place a signal just here, and I'm just going to place a standard stop and wait signal. So basically this bottom line here, this is our main line, this is going to take priority. It'll pull in here and then head back out again when it's done. And if there is a train in this station, then the train that's running for goods from Brown Preserve over there will come to this signal here, and it'll stop and it'll wait until the station and that little bit of track after it has been cleared before it then moves off. But obviously we don't want to put a no entry symbol on there because we need stuff to be able to go back up there again as well. Let's start putting some trains in. So let's add a train, just the basic Philadelphia, and we don't need to worry about any of these cars here. We're just going to be running freight. Although I suppose we are going to be travelling a little bit of food. Let's attach a refrigerator car. And now we need to set the line up. So we're going to run from Brown Preserve into Cheyenne. And there we go. There is our train loading up. And you can see we're loading up with wheat at the moment. And that's going to shoot off over our little bridges. Of course, we need to make sure that this doesn't run out of supplies, so we need a supply tower on this route somewhere as well. Let's put the supply tower just there. Now we need to do the same on this line here, so I'm also going to put in a passing loop in a couple of places along here. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to build my parallel track. There's my passing loop, and now I need to connect it with switches. There we go, and we're going to put the signals in. Oops, that's new train. We're going to need that in a second anyway, so that's not a problem. Let's put our signals in. So that we can block off the relevant lines of this. Like so. There we go. And I'm going to put a supply tower in the middle of this as well. And there we go. And I'm going to do another one over here as well. So again, I'm just going to build a stretch of track for us to do our passing. Switch on one end, and switch on the other. Again, I'm going to go into signals. We're going to block off access in the relevant directions. And I'm not going to bother with a supply tower on this one. And I need one on here as well. So let's go back to track construction. I'm just going to put one single switch point on this one. I'm going to run it on the opposite side for a change. I'm going to make this quite a long piece because I am going to be connecting a supply tower in the middle of this one. There we go. Now let's put the signals in. It doesn't matter which way you direct them. It's entirely up to you which way you want your trains to go, whether you want them to stay on the right or whether you want to stay on the left. Just make sure that you have the signals facing the right direction and in the right position so that your trains don't end up being blocked from both routes like they currently are. Or having no restrictions. The blocking is once they get in there, they're stuck, kind of thing. And now I need the supply tower as well. I'm going to plonk that kind of in the middle. And there we go. We have a nice big route. So we're going to extend the routes that our two trains are taking. We're going to start with this train here. In fact, actually, no. Let's just run a fresh train out of Norfolk. Let's put in a maintenance shed, because this is going to be the start of our new line. And we want to cycle to that station. Oops, cycle to that train that we tried to build. There we go. We're going to add a locomotive. And this one is going to be an express train only. So we're going to go with a dining car, and we're going to go with a mail car. That's all the extras we need on that. Now I'm going to go to rail line, We're going to start here from Norfolk to North Platte to Cheyenne, back to North Platte, back to Norfolk, to Omaha, and then it'll then automatically default back to Norfolk again. And that's our express loop. And so I'm going to go to route options. I'm going to make this an express goods only train. So this will only try and take passengers and only try and take mail. It won't take regular freight. And I'm happy with that, so save and end. And there is our new train being built. There we go, and off he goes. I'm going to do the same again with another new train, but with a slightly shorter route. So this one is going to be our freight train, so I'm going to want a refrigerator car on this one. I'm going to go from Norfolk to North Platte to Cheyenne, back to North Platte, and that's it. We've already got freight that runs from these stations here. We don't need to, further the route on that. So we're just going to run these ones like this. I'm going to go to route options. I'm going to select this one as freight only. And it can't come in just yet because, as you can see, we're waiting for track clearance. This is our other passenger train. There we go, so that one's turning around. It's reloading with more passengers. And off he goes. And as soon as that's clear, our new train should spawn in. There it is. And we've got nothing to transport here, as you can see. That's why it's headed off like that. We have no goods that we need to transport. So he's going to rocket all the way down here. He's going to hit North Platte. And if there's anything there he can pick up, he'll pick that up and then take that on to Cheyenne. And then likewise, he'll get to Cheyenne, turn around. Anything he needs to take back to North Platte, he will do. And then if there's anything from North Platte that needs to go to Norfolk, he'll pick up freight and run it that way. So this train might run a little bit empty. He might actually pick up some freight. It's entirely up to the location. This guy should pick up a lot of passengers and even some mail for at least his first few trips. Then he might start to slow down a little bit. But I think this is a good place for us to take a break, and we will continue finishing off our objectives, which will be our optional tasks and our connecting the Great Plains with the Rockies. We'll do that all in the next part of this. So thanks for watching. I am Jim Bob, and I'll be back with some more Railway Empire very soon.